want to start this chat by saying that you need to remember there is always a way that you are going to be okay. Everybody is going through such a limbo right now, and it's not by accident because we have two opposing forces kind of acting very strongly in all of us. One is this feeling of, what more do I need to do, God, universe, light, divine, to get what I'm thinking I'm wanting? Like, I've tried everything. I'm kind of at my wit's end and I'm impatient and I want it now. And wanting to be free of that same cycle over and over again. And at the same time, we're feeling so pulled in another direction, which is like, oh my God, I'm kind of like uncomfy in my daily life. Like, why is like moving through time and space feeling a bit weird and janky at the moment? So we have this pull to the sort of imagination or spiritual realm, existential realm, and then also this pull towards like, oof, I'm just feeling so brought into the physical, but in an uncomfortable way. And that's for a very good reason ultimately, but it may mean that a lot of us, especially if we have been asking the big questions and doing the spiritual work for all of this year so far, we just are feeling in limbo where we're getting glimpses maybe of the different kinds of changes we need to make. And we're maybe about to make them or we've started making them, but the evidence hasn't shown up yet. And we're feeling impatient and we're feeling frustrated and we might feel hopeless and we might feel worn down. So this is a time to get very, very clear on why you want the things you've wanted, and also to blow open the questions that you're asking yourself. What's going to happen to a lot of us right now is that things we never thought we wanted might all of a sudden seem attractive to us. Things we've wanted for a long time don't pull us in the same way, or the things that we want kind of shift slightly in the way that we want to receive them. The best tool you can have right now is an open mind. And everybody probably likes to think, we all like to think that we have an open mind. But we continue to tell stories about things that we think and want and have and all the time that we just get used to those grooves. Right now, because the planet Uranus has just moved into Gemini, this is a disruption and quantum leaping in our thoughts, our ideas, our life direction. And because Uranus is quantum, it means that if you align with a new thing that your soul wanted more than the thing it thought it wanted before, it can happen very fast. And that's very amazing and very promising. But the hard work, which is sometimes the part that takes a long time, is the facing, is the getting radically honest with, who am I without this dream if I feel like a part of me wants to put it to bed? And will I be okay if I don't know what my next dream is? And who would I be without that thing? Or what if all of a sudden I wanted to always write books, but now I just want to illustrate? Like, all of these things is what we call ego death, meaning that who you were to yourself changes. And so your relationship to your identity looks different. And the question is, can we adjust? So what I always say is that our two big questions that all of our other questions always root down to are, am I going to be okay? And is it going to be okay? So I say that because I want to provide you some comfort in the idea that anything you're asking, you're not that unique. And nobody knows what they're doing on this planet. We're all just figuring it out. The world is divided into people who are brave enough to admit that they don't know and that they're always in asking of that question. And those of us who are sometimes afraid to face that and live that, and therefore try to pretend like we've got it all together. But the pretending like we've got it all together, it has a time and a place in survival, right? Like if you are running from a flood and you're trying to guide other people through it, you need to embody that energy. But when you really, truly need to transform yourself, that's when the only way through a true transformation is sitting with your humanness, is sitting with all the things that we think are weak. Things like, I'm afraid of this, or I have a hard time being that, or I judge people who do this, which is why I've never allowed myself to do things, or I perceive it as bad, or someone else told me it perceived it as bad. That kind of like more raw and uglier admittance of the truth is the way through. The only thing is that we live in a society that never taught us how to do that. And so we are like babies walking on Bambi legs when it comes to psycho, emotional, spiritual maturity. As much as we have learned to act mature through the ways that we like manage daily life, the inside transformation doesn't quite yet match up to that. So, because we are this bridge or transition generations between the old paradigm and the new paradigm, we really have to take it upon ourselves to teach ourselves how to do this stuff before the world teaches us, because the world is not going to teach us how to do this until enough of us start doing it and making it a thing, and enough of us have actually tried to practice this. And of course, through history, there's been people who have done this, but never in a mass way that we're going to be able to do as a society going forward. So it's on you, and this is the hardest part about spirituality. The hardest part about spirituality is you can drown in the consumption of information. And many people, including myself at earlier parts of this lifetime for me, stopped there because we prefer to think that if we just learn more, which is essentially a more passive, less responsibility taking choice, as long as we keep learning, then we're getting better. And that's actually not the case. The true work of a spiritual warrior is to say, now I have to take this knowledge, or now I have to take this challenge that's coming up in my life, or this issue, or this rock bottom, and sit me down, sit myself down. And no one is going to make me do that. And the world certainly isn't going to make you do that. You're not going to be expected to do that until like you're really desperate. So we want to start before we become desperate, and we want to get in the very good practice of knowing that the transformation only happens when you can say something out loud to yourself and let it be okay. In the app, we have this section called How to Grow. And one of the big tenets of that is accepting your humanness, which is this prayer that I always say of let there be nothing about me that I can't say to me and not be okay with. Meaning that not having fears and being free of all these judgments and this darkness and this ugly side of humanity is not what makes us successful. And that's actually, that belief stops us from even looking for it in us. But there's always different layers in us, and they always are the key to the next level of our alignment. So actually, instead of running from them and pretending that we don't have them to ourselves because that means that we're going to be okay in life, the way to be okay is to literally passionately try and find even the micro judgments that you catch yourself making in the day and act as if they are the most important thing in the day, because they are. Because doing the spiritual work, doing your unbecoming, freeing ourselves of this darkness is the thing that draws everything to us. And then we don't even have to worry about how it's going to come to us or how it's going to plan. And all of a sudden we just become this calm rod in the sea that is willing to see anything. Because whenever we don't want to see things in us is when we get a warped perception of life, because we can't take in the raw data of the physical world, the five senses, the situations that we're in through a warped lens. The only way we can learn from life truly is if we're seeing it through a clear lens, meaning one that we don't need to kind of misinterpret by accident or even subconsciously because of our judgments and our fears that are getting in the way, right? Like if something makes you afraid and it triggers a fear, a deep fear, you might tell yourself different stories about what actually happened because you just don't want to face the trigger. So we've kind of come to like baby around our negative feelings because we've been taught by the world that negative feelings are scary, are dangerous, and make us incapable, unlovable, weak. And the weak is the big one because we see people from this old paradigm who seem to be at the top and we don't necessarily see their fears. I mean, it's getting better now, but we don't see the things that they contend with in private. And, you know, it's not necessarily their responsibility to. But on the other hand, we also see a lot of people fake cosplaying a silly amount of strength and almost like a muscling through kind of strength rather than a strength that is coming from the strength of being able to wield your own command over self, no matter what state you're in. We haven't seen that being modeled to people. So we either see fake strength or we see very performative weakness, and we see a lot of vulnerability being used as an excuse to why you don't have those things or to get things from others, right? It can be very manipulative, like I'm going to cosplay as weak so that I get other people to love me. So we don't have this like really powerful sweet spot in the middle where we have people who are living in total faith and trust because they know that the only game that's actually going on here that's worth paying attention to is the one of your becoming. And therefore, the universe is never going to send you a challenge that isn't A, at the perfect timing, that it hasn't teed up correctly, and isn't exactly the size that you currently can handle. And therefore, that's why you have certainty that you can handle it. Not because it's going to be perfect and not because you're not going to misunderstand or that it might take time, but because there's no way you would have drawn it to you if there wasn't already a solution for it. And a lot of people do ask me about certainty because I think it's very misunderstood. I think the way some people talk about certainty is like almost like a neighbor or a very close cousin to spiritual bypass, where it's like, if you feel uncertain, just have certainty. Whereas actually, certainty is not certainty that everything is always going to be great or that things are going to go your way or that just being fake certain is the thing that's going to almost the thing you're going to manipulate life with to give you what you want just because you first have to act certain. It's actually that even when you are nervous, scared, unsure, sitting in the unknown, you remember the meta game. You remember the big picture, which is that this whole setup is your relationship between you and the universe, and that it wouldn't put you here if there wasn't one of the options coming out of here that you would rise above by working on your becoming, and you would be a bigger or higher vibration than the problem because you changed yourself, and that is a spiritual universal law that when you become, when you rise in your being and you be like the light, the problems always go away. So it's not even a personal certainty. It's not because I'm amazing or because any other reason. It's because of the very just universal law. It's not about us. We don't have to be fake confident. We don't have to be unscared. It's okay to know that it's the unknown, because if everything was known, this whole game wouldn't feel believable enough to even feel invested in. So certainty is not, this means it's always going to work out. It's that the only thing that is worth doing for sure is my becoming. Because let's say, for example, our brains don't even know what's good and what's bad. So what our brains might say, well, the person who had certainty and then they passed away from their illness, even though they practiced certainty, we might never know that the fake certainty was not really the solve, and that there is a responsibility required in the certainty I'm talking about, which is you have to become something different. You have to either think something different, do something different, rise above the occasion, react to it in a different way that is not the normal loop that you react to things with. There's so many different things, but if you get quiet, you will start to know. And this is where it's also really important to talk to your friends about it, because we all have blind spots, and that's why we need each other. But really what I'm saying is we cannot try and hang on to things always turning out the way that we want. And as much as we try to sometimes use spirituality as a hack to get rid of that existential discomfort that life is an unknown and there is no amount of learning or being spiritual that can control that, it's hard to say that. But as long as we accept that and we really face that, then the certainty that we can rely on is, as long as I've become the best kind of human that I can reach for in this moment, then the only way to know, the only type of knowing if everything was good, is after our soul leaves this body and we are reunited and we see things from the eyes of the creator or the light, and we say, oh, I did my job. Oh, I did well. This was the karma that I came here to accomplish. And then, from those eyes, we never know. Someone who did pass away from an illness is because they completed their karma. Why is passing away from an illness only ever bad. There are so many other layers of what's going on in this reality that we are just not privy to. So this whole playing the game of like good, bad, trying to mitigate, trying to over plan so that never bad things happen to us, and thinking that the more we worry about it, the less it will happen, less likely it will happen. Right now, and especially because Uranus is in Gemini, every possibility, every potential is wide open, and we don't make that discomfort go away by trying to make one of the possibilities happen and give ourselves that kind of false temporary safety. We get certain by sitting with the reality that everything is unknown. We get comfortable with what's actually going on in this life, which is everything is unknown. No one's in control fully. We're only in control of our reactions, our responses, our own choices. But the things that happen to us in the sequence that they happen to us, the only way this is ever going to be okay is if we surrender to it. And what I will say is that in the next 18 months, those of us who don't face that, the only other thing that's going to happen, because we'll find other ways to soothe that, is we will run from soothing to soothing to soothing to numbing to numbing to numbing. And it's really not going to serve us well, to put it lightly. It's going to take us from being very blessed for getting the advanced memo to kind of missing the advanced memo. So we're being very, very gently nudged to this stuff now. And so I think we should take heed. Everybody is an existential being, and we're all facing this fact that we have to learn to swim with the unknown. We have to dance with the unknown. We have to be okay with it. We have to face it. And if we try to start acting like it's not and give ourselves the temporary illusions that it's not, then what's going to happen is that you've never faced the actual assignment. You haven't started working with life as it is, which is the unknown, which is that not the full control, but you have full control of yourself. Unless we start accepting and really, really accepting those three things, then everything else we're doing is not going to last long. It's not going to come to anything. There's nothing good or long term or worth keeping that it's going to create. And if anything, it's going to create a lot more lostness, a lot more confusion. And there will come a point where if we confuse ourselves too much with wanting all the info and wanting to learn and not sit down and accept responsibility for no one is coming to save me but me, I have to be responsible. Life is a total unknown. And also, I want to feel like I've got this. So let me start acting like I'm a person who tries to got this, that's when certainty comes. Unless we start doing that and understanding that as the assignment now, it's going to be much more difficult because you just are then reinforcing the lost frequency. And then the more you stay lost and confused and numbing, the harder it is to get out of that. And why I feel so lucky to be alive at this moment in time is that there are so many of us who are going through this same thing. Do you know how many times in history someone like you would never have been able to feel like they even have the inklings to go on a spiritual journey because you would have got hung, drawn, and quartered for it, or because everyone would have thought you were an absolute freak? I mean, now, of course, a lot of us have had families or have families or communities that don't understand us, but all over this world, and even just through listening to this podcast or another podcast that inspires you, you are connecting with people, and it's reinforcing the knowing that you're not crazy. That there are other people who want to do this kind of stuff. And so we keep each other going. And that's why I feel so lucky to be alive at this time. I think we picked such a good time, guys, because we get to grow faster because we have each other, because we remind each other, because we make it okay, because we don't reinforce that any of us are total freaks that are one of a kind. And therefore we must be getting it wrong because everyone else is seeming to accept some other kind of manual for life that you're just not privy to. And everyone else seems to be running around like, getting married at 22 is the most important thing in the world and just following the homogenized program. So to be alive is no small thing that your soul chose to be alive in this moment, which also seems to corroborate that you have what it takes, because the universe does not waste energy. The creator is not unintentional. It doesn't do things because it just fancies it or feels like it. If you know the laws of energy doesn't get wasted. So it wouldn't go to all that trouble of reincarnating you if it didn't design you to be someone who had what it took. And so all that's left really is, are you ready to feel like you could be someone who has what it takes to do what you dream of being? Here's to our rising.